Hi, this is Mike Ellick, and we're looking at the Picolet, a small folding camera from the 1920s. This camera used Kodak's VP127 film. VP stands for vest pocket, meaning that the camera, when folded, could fit into a vest pocket. The Picolet first appeared as a product of the Contessa-Nettel camera company. Several years later, Contessa-Nettel and a number of other German camera makers merged to form Zeiss Ikon. The Picolet became a Zeiss Ikon product, but aside from the name of the camera maker and one lens change, it was identical to the Contessa-Nettel model. The Picolet uses lazy tongue struts to hold the lens panel in place. To open the camera, you press a small button on the base and pull the lens panel forward. Be careful with that lens panel because it's made of light alloy and is easily damaged. The premium model was fitted with a 4-element Tessar lens and a dial-set compure shutter, while the less expensive model had a non-focusing triplet, the Netar and Astigmat, which was substituted with another triplet, the Novar, when the camera became a Zeiss Ikon product. The Picolet has two viewfinders. One is a brilliant viewfinder, which is a small lens set above a mirror that sits at a 45-degree angle. The Picolet's brilliant viewfinder rotates so that it can be used if you are shooting a portrait, which is vertical, or landscape, which is horizontal. The second viewfinder is a wireframe that extends from the lens panel that's used in conjunction with the small peephole that slips into the back of the cover plate. Did it work? Neither provides exact framing, so you should allow plenty of room around your subject. The shutter release sits behind the lens panel. The compure shutter had to be tensioned separately before it could be released. You'll notice it has this small little curved portion at the front, and its only purpose is to allow the camera to sit upright. As I mentioned, this camera uses 127 film, which is still available today. Kodak introduced 127 film in 1912, and it, along with 120 film, became the only roll films to survive into the modern era and, in fact, into this century. In order to load film into the Picolet, you have to remove the film carrier. You do this by turning the small dial on the base of the camera until the A is lined up with the small hash mark. The other is marked Z for close. Simply pull the carrier away from the body. You might have to wiggle it a bit, or a lot, depending on the age and condition of your camera. Holding the film carrier with the bottom plate at the bottom and the winding key on the right, the fresh roll of film should be on the left side and the take-up spool should be on the right side. Both the fresh roll and the take-up spool are held in place by a sprung assembly. If you haven't already done so, make sure that the take-up spool is on the right. This is a very stiffly sprung assembly. How to get the take-up spool in more easily is you take your finger and you push this assembly outward. Hold it with your fingers, insert the empty spool in here, and insert the other end into the take-up, and into the key, I should say. And when it's in place correctly, your key will then turn the take-up spool. Next, insert the fresh roll film on the left side and pull out some of the paper leader. Insert the tongue of that paper into the slot of the take-up spool. Just turn the key until you see it appear, like so. So you would insert the paper leader into here and then wind it several times to make sure that the paper is secured to the take-up spool. The key only rotates in one direction, and there is a small arrow that shows you that direction. Continue winding until the paper backing is very taut across the film gate. Once it's in place, you take the film carrier and you slide it back into the camera. Press on both sides, make sure it's locked, and then turn this to Z. You'll see a small red window. Now all you do is you continue winding until 1 appears in this window. When 1 appears centered in the window, stop winding, fold your key down, Close your little door. You're now ready to take your first photograph. You can compose your shot using either the brilliant finder, which is meant to be used at waist level, or you can use the wireframe finder, which is meant to be used at eye level. You look through this tiny hole here, and then you frame your shot using the wireframe as your guide. As I said, it's approximate. It's probably roughly accurate, but I wouldn't count on it to be extremely accurate. After you take your photo, wind to number 2 until 2 appears in this red window. Then you can take your next photo, wind till 3, etc. This camera takes 8 photographs. After you've taken 8 photographs, continue winding until the end. And when you reach the end, you'll hear flap, 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 flap. And that way you know you've reached the end. If you actually watch it in here, you can see the paper backing as it clears this window. You never rewind roll film. You only wind it from one spool to the other spool, always. After you're finished, turn the dial to A. Remove your carrier. Now remove your exposed roll film, take it and have it processed.